the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the Life Force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive. Hello.
Hi.
Leila. How are we this morning?
Good. Excited.
We are excited because we are recording our first session today with a beautiful guest. We have someone else joining us in our conversation today, so we're very, very excited. So just before we introduce our guest, I wanted just to mark the occasion, if you like, with just a little bit of intention setting and welcoming our guest into our space, the first of many that we have lined up that we're very excited to be joining us in this beautiful conversation. So whether you're listening or live with us now, then I invite you just to take just a short moment with me. So when you're ready, I invite you just to take a breath in and out. And as we take the next breath in, I'm going to take a moment just personally to be grateful today for this opportunity to speak, to share, to be curious, and to welcome and invite the topics, the conversations, and the discussion into this space. And our intention is that with an additional voice to Kareel and I's in this conversation, that you can find other new, alternative, exciting, thought-provoking insights into what life force energy might mean for you, as it's a very personal journey, as we've explored through our conversations already. And it really is the reason we welcome new people into this space and this conversation, so that we can broaden our curiosities, our life experience, and also our empathy with others as they navigate their own life force journey. So take another breath in, and as we exhale, I welcome and open this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. That was beautiful, and I am so excited to be introducing our first ever guest on May the Life Force be with you. Tabather is an amazing Kundalini teacher, and I didn't know this until she filled in the form, but she's also a Shiatsu therapist, and her company is called Soulomorfi, which means beautiful soul, which I just love as a title. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tabather, but one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you into this conversation is I believe, in the small experience I've had with Kundalini Yoga, that Kundalini is the yoga of life force energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I think the great thing about Kundalini is it's always asking you and inviting you to touch upon your own experience, to really value and honor what that experience is, and to then feel that life force that is flowing through you, through the practices that we do. But because we also do that within a community setting, you have all of this added value support available to you. So you can travel into so many different depths. You can traverse the worlds. It's really an amazing way. And there's practices for everybody, for sure. This is just one entry and one way to experience that vitality that runs through you.
So for someone that doesn't practice yoga, or does practice yoga but does the Instagram version of it, how would you describe the difference in Kundalini and what that background is that makes it so different and so powerful?
So I have no idea what Instagram yoga is. So I've got no anchor or no
people just
or no reference point to
okay,
the
when people stand.
It's when people stand on sacred sites or beautiful things and make a picture of a very advanced yoga pose.
They're forced into a yoga pose for an aesthetically pleasing moment of time, but there is no spiritual connection or even breath involved in that. In fact, the complete opposite. They're probably straining their body for a split second to make it look like it was joy and zen.
Like the sun is on top of their toe.
Yeah. So I think you just touched on a really important point there, Fiona, which is authenticity. And that's really what Kundalini is, in a way. I mean, Kundalini is a Sanskrit word, and a lot of people understand it as being translated as the serpent energy, but actually it comes from the root word kundal, which is like a lock of hair of the beloved, which gives you an idea of this spiral of life. And this is the energy that's already inside of us. So Kundalini is prana. It is life force. So if we want to start talking about what life force is, for me, life force is the creative energy that underpins and animates all things. But it's more than just an energy. It's the spirit that makes it alive. So when we're working with our own Kundalini, which we all have, it's there. It's like our trust fund of extra energy, extra prana, and we can activate it. But we need to make sure also that we're prepared for that activation. So what makes Kundalini in a way different from what you say, the Insta world of posing and, getting that perfect picture, and that, there's got to be some mental faculty behind that. Someone's like, they've really thought out that pose, and we can take something from that. But yes, it's not that's not the intention of the practice. The practice is to bring us home into ourselves, to really start to experience what it is that we are here to do in this world, in our short time that we've got. It's not about, finding this way of being that is asking us to be something that we're not. And I think that's really important. There's so many little things that come to mind, like in songs, like, don't try to fit in, you fit perfectly in you. But you're not given permission to fit perfectly in you, because there's too many distractions all the time. And so we do need a practice that brings us back into the home of ourselves and finding a way to be not just comfortable with that, but to love who we are and our own unique place in this world and our own unique resonance that we're given to this world. And this world is not going to be the same without us. This world is made up because we are in it. We're part of this whole big picture, which is the life force. Like, each part of us make up that little bit of energy that makes the world. And that's really powerful. And once you start to experience that within your own personal practice, whatever that may be, Kundalini is just one access point, but it has many tools inside of it that have been tested throughout antiquity. Let go of all the manipulations of power, the abuse, all of this stuff that distort what the teachings are, because I think that's also another really, really big subject for me, is that people want to take ownership of something. We don't need to own anything. It's there already for us to receive, if we can be humble enough to accept it. We don't need to compete with each other. We all have our place. And that's what makes it different. We're not trying to, pull people in through something that isn't real. And that's where the authenticity comes from. So it's a yoga for the mind. It's not necessarily just for the body. That will happen because our physical body is the gateway into certain experiences. We live in this body, so we need to be in body. We need to have a somatic experience. But we also need to know how to navigate our internal world and these amazing waves of the mind that are continuously shopping about, like these waves jumping up and down in the sea. I can jump in the sea, and this is like a literal experience of the mind, in many aspects. So this is what makes it slightly different, because we want to be true to ourselves, and then once we have an experience of what that feels like, that is, we can then be more true.
I'm intrigued about this theme of truth and being authentic, and I'm just wondering if there's anything you can say about why life force energy is so, from a Kundalini point of view, why life force energy is so key to authenticity. Like how is it that the kind of name of the yoga, life force energy, and I also really want to ask you about the lock of hair, because that's just amazing. But like, because I notice that when I'm not authentic, my life force energy drops. Like I feel more tired. I feel more, it's like what I lose by not being authentic is my life force energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that like practices like Kundalini, and I have to admit that when I first met Kundalini, I was like, that is torture yoga. I'm never doing that again. That was horrendous. I had my arms up for ages, and I was like, that's awful. But when I came back to Kundalini years later, I was like, I get it now, and I get that there's what it's teaching me to do is be more acute with what my life force is doing, so that I don't give in to myth or lie or limitations within myself, but I instead listen to my life force energy. And that's just my personal experience. But I'm intrigued about how for anybody listening, how you feel life force energy can help somebody be more authentic or more truthful.
I think that is another definition of what life force is. It's truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head. And people say, okay, well, truth can change. No, truth doesn't change. Life force is life force. But yes, our connection to that and our experience of how we are, it's going to change. This is the only constant in life. We know that. Everything has its time. Everything has its season. Mother Nature offers this to us over and over again. So the practice allows you to really check in with what's going on with you within your natural cycle, within your personal cycle, in relationship to what is happening in the outer world. So it's this merging of the inner and outer worlds. And we know when our inner world is more relaxed, is more at peace, no matter what's going on, that shifts into the outer world, and vice versa. Sometimes the inner world is so chaotic, and what we need to do is clean our house, just something very physical, and that will just bring us back into center. So life force has I do like to give her a pronoun. So I like to call her. So forgive me if I'm being a bit
no, that's interesting. Why do you feel she's feminine? Why do you feel life force is feminine?
She's feminine? Yeah, that's a good question. I feel she's feminine because she is continually in creation, continually creating. And for me, creativity and Kundalini Shakti is a feminine divine force. It's like the pure expression of things wanting to come into manifestation. And yes, there's a relationship. Of course, life force has all those different aspects because it contains all the elements. So yes, of course, there is this divine masculine that comes in that has to witness the feminine in order for her to do her dance and to create. But for me, this energy has a very feminine force to it. You know, she's continually giving back. She's continually plugging into an essential source of power that is always available, and that's what's creating all the time. And it's like these little swirls and ripples that are going out into the world, and from that ripple another ripple comes, and from that other ripple another ripple comes, and that ripple joins up with another little ripple. You know, it's like the flow of life. It just keeps rippling out, and there's no way to harness it in a way, because she can't be boxed in. And I think this is another aspect. Maybe harness is the wrong word. We can utilize it. We can draw upon that life force. And I think what you said about when I know that I'm not being authentic, I lose my life force. We lose our life force in many ways. We lose it when we're in front of the screen too many times, when we're not eating the right food, when we're spending company with people who there's not a balance of reciprocity. You know, there's many ways. And so there are teachings out there that say to us, like, discipline your senses, become more aware of where you're spending your energy and where you're also putting that energy back into your system, where you're receiving energy. And yeah, again, that balance is always going to shift, and there's going to be times when that's easier for you to do, or for me to do, for us to do. And then there's going to be times when, okay, we need a little bit of a reserve in that energetic bank account so that it's going to carry us forward. And I feel like as a mother, I paid into my nervous system a lot before I gave birth to my little wildling of a son. And I'm so happy I did that. You know, some of those hard practices kept me when I didn't sleep properly, when I was like constantly on it, you know. But we need to keep putting back into the system, and in many ways. And it's not just about me. It's also about how we can then offer and show up for those people in our lives around us. I think being a parent, being a mother is like the biggest kriya, the biggest yoga I have ever experienced. It's the most beautiful gift that teaches me what life force is really about. Like really, really about. There's no getting away from it, you know. There is this little person I am 100% responsible for a period of time. And I signed up for that. And I wholeheartedly love it. But it's so difficult sometimes to be constantly there for another person. And this is maybe another expression, or another definition of what life force is, and that's unconditional love. You know, this is.
Would you say that's why there's this lock of hair analogy in the name Kundalini?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that where you think it, like, what's coming to me is like, it's like the goddess. The goddess has given, the great mother, Gaia, Pachamama, has given you a lock of her hair.
It's like
and
a
she's
twirl,
like,
you know? And you know, this little twirl, and when you let go, it springs. It springs into action. And I like that about the Eastern traditions, is that everything is very visual. You know, it's not just very mindly. You know, there's a lot of things that we can learn from a book, but actually we're living in a space now and in a time when, you know, that's not going to cut it anymore. It needs to be experiential. We need to learn through experience for it to really hold weight, because you can read anything. I remember when I first started Kundalini Yoga, and I think I was 17 when I read my first book on the chakras, and it was by an author that I later met. He was part of the priestess tradition called Naomi Ozanique, an amazing woman. And yeah, it was like I was reading this book about the chakra system, and I was like, okay, it didn't, it didn't really make 100% sense to me. And then some years later, I started practicing Kundalini Yoga, and I was like, okay, now I've got an experience of what that is. Like, now I can put that into practice. And I think that happens a lot. Do the practice first, then read up on it. Don't.
Or
I feel like a lot
read
of
up on it.
people, yeah, a lot of people ask me, they come to a class and then they want like 10 books. The books don't matter. The books are
I
inside
have
the
the
book.
same thing.
I mean,
I'm
I
like,
read a
don't
lot.
read
It's
it.
not that I don't read.
Yeah, but I'm like, go and experience it. Don't, like nothing I channel about, I read about, because I want to be a clear channel for it. And so if you get to know it yourself without any information, for me, that's personally better. And then I find like the books you are meant to read, or the things that you are meant to know about, do come to you. They find a way into you. I heard something interesting about I've worked with the chakras for years, and I didn't realize that actually there are nerve centers where the 7 chakras are.
Yeah,
We
there
have
are
clusters of nerve
plexus. Yeah,
in exactly where the chakras are.
yeah.
So the chakras are actually a depiction of these clusters of nerves within the body, which I thought was just amazing.
I mean, everyone knows solar plexus. It's like we have all of these different centers, and all of them, they're different. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible that everything starts to just fit in when you open to it. But it's important to have an experience first, definitely. And that experience for you is
I
very
feel the
different
same.
from
I feel
everybody
the
else.
same way with technology. So technology is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it enables us to do so much, like talk right now about life force. And I've started recently wearing a whoop, so I'm kind of like being a contradiction somewhat to myself, but I fought against technology telling me how I feel on a daily basis for so long, and it's a big thing about what we practice at Moment Company is you don't need an app to meditate. You don't. You don't need an app to tell you that you've had a good night's sleep. You don't need an app to tell you if you're having a good day. Like, it's so important that we learn to check in with ourselves in this fundamental setting that is the life that we lead. We cannot rely on technology, a book, or even one single practice to be everything that we want to live. There's a bit of responsibility and accountability for ourselves, and being present and being dynamic and active in how we want to live and how we want to feel. And this reliance on a piece of technology or a book will save me, I feel, is it's such a crutch for people. They want to know there's a silver bullet, or I just have to take this pill and then everything will be okay because I've taken that pill. What people aren't very good is taking that accountability of, and I thought about it, Tabitha, when you were talking about being a mum. I'm not a mum, but when you said, you have just responsibilities, sole responsibility is for this little person. I felt that for myself. I felt that for everybody out there who doesn't want to protect themselves and have the same level of love that you do for your son. If we don't, if only we all said, I just want to look after this person and make sure they're okay and they're happy. And that love and outpouring we give to others. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could reflect on the inside job a little bit more? And I'm guessing that's kind of what the practices that you're talking about really allow for, that inward reflection. Because you can't look after someone unconditionally if you don't have your well topped up yourself. So it's just a little reflection on something that you said there that really struck a chord with me of, wouldn't it be great if we all looked inside and gave ourselves, our inner child, our younger selves, a little bit of a hug sometimes too.
I love that you said that, Fiona, because I feel like when this thing of like when you lose your life force energy, it's like when you haven't honored that lock of the goddess, that lock of the mother's love. It's like if you haven't been a mother to yourself, because essentially being a mother is about nurturing the life force energy in this little person. You know, like the main responsibility is like, are you keeping the life force energy of this person going? You know, and it's
More
like
than
when you don't
value.
honor that in yourself, your life force energy drops because you didn't look after your life force energy in the way you ate, in the way you slept, in the people you were interacting with. It's like you ignored the locket of hair, the love of the mother, and it's
And
I
isn't it
also
interesting how symbolic it is that people used to wear lockets, and in that locket they would
mm,
put the first cut
The hair.
of their child's hair.
mm,
So you see how
mm,
this intelligence weaves its way into our life. And you were saying, you know, when I need to read a book, it will appear. And there is this creative intelligence that we can attune to. And yes, okay, we're gonna fall sometimes, and it happens. You know, we get bogged down by everything. But I think that's the other side of it, is that we do live in a very transactional world. Now, what can we do? Why can't we apply that also to our life force? I don't necessarily support this transactional world that we live in. I think there is a better way, which is reciprocity and gift culture, and there's many other interactions that we can have. And I think that's also one of the reasons that we're in such a mess as well, is because of these very outdated, archaic systems that aren't working. So being a mother, going back to what Fiona said, and this massive responsibility for this other person, and actually using that as a wisdom point for ourselves, like we do need to parent ourselves better so that we are fully able to be present in the world. I've lost my train of thought a little bit. I'll leave it there.
I feel like just to pick up from that train of thought, I love what you also said, Fiona, about the technology, because if a parent left a child completely to technology, you would call that abuse. Like, you would be like, that is neglect, that is abuse. It is not okay for the computer to decide when the child is eating. That child needs to be beheld, that child needs to be listened to. You know, I had this brilliant thing last year where I have a course that's about manifesting on your feminine cycle. And somebody asked me to do this vlog with an app, with Alexa. Is it Alexia or Alexa? Because I was saying it wrong at the beginning because I'm not technical. And so like, I was like, I'm going to pair this ancient ceremonial wisdom of tuning into your cycle with this app that is telling me what my cycle is doing. And basically the app got it wrong because my cycle just was like, so like, you know, like the app was working on 21 days, like the typical moons and everything like that. Basically like my cycle went completely off the chart, and the listening way was absolutely the right way because and I think this is again what kind of Kundalini teaches me, at least, is like, you're different every day. Like, your life force is affected by so many factors, by seasons, by how you like your like, and so these like algorithms might be able to give you a certain view, but they don't give you mother magic.
There's no spirit, like there. I think that's the difference between technology and, you know,
it's not sentient.
It's the lived experience. There's something, I think, you know, with cacao, for example, in the Mayan tradition, they say we're made of corn, but we're just a corn person with no spirits until you drink the cacao to activate that spirit. And I've always loved that. You know, we need the breath. We need prana. Is everyone knows prana is a Sanskrit word. It means primal energy. So in the Oriental traditions, it's chi or it's ki. You know, they all have names for this universal life force, and it's life. This is life. You can't
even the root word of breath in English means spirit.
Exactly.
I
So
love it when
even
you
in
call them
The
words.
our
letter
unromantic,
are
like it
beautifully
means spirit.
poetic. Yeah.
English,
English. Yeah.
it means spirit.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when we're connecting on a deeper level, what are we connecting to? You can go to two different classes. One, they would teach the same things, but someone who's bringing that teaching through or channeling something and connecting on a certain level with resonance, and it's not just talking from a book that they've read. You can feel the difference. It's palpable when you know when you're in the presence of someone who's really, really present for you, is not distracted by doing something else, which happens. You're having a conversation with someone, but there's so many other things going on that they're not fully present with you. And there's a certain type of spirit that we're also always connecting to, and it's there for us to experience. Like Mother Nature, she has everything. We're like so part of this earth. Like she is a living, breathing organism. And if we applied what you were saying, Fiona, earlier, going back to my train of thought, is if we just started to apply how we're using that, how we're showing up, and then not looking as though this planet that we live on is something for us to take charge of or to again own, but as it's part of ourselves, then we will start to build this much more deeper relationship, because you can't have a relationship with anything until you really start to care for it. So how can we care for anything if we don't have a relationship? So it works both ways. Like we need to have an experience of that. And that's why I think so much more of this embodiment practices are coming in. More people are actually working with the breath, because it's the breath which carries the prana. It's not just oxygen. It's not just, we need to breathe. We need to be connected to the spirit, to everything that is alive in this world, which we are a part of. So that's another reason why we need our practices, whatever they are, to reconnect us. We're not just a physical. We're so many different layers, multi-dimensional beings, and we understand that. I keep talking as a collective. I mean, I understand that every day. My mind is such a tricky little thing that I need something. I need something to recenter me and to offer me another alternative to just that chaos.
To honour the technology, I think that it's worth saying that the technology does give you an anchor. So like the thing on your wrist, Fiona, don't know what it's called. That is, and also the like Alexia period thing. For people that maybe haven't been listening or tuning in, I think what the technology can do is help remind you to listen in. Do you see what I mean? It's like, it's to give you a structure. It's a bit like the Kundalini physical poses. It gives you structure to then tune in and listen when maybe you were walking around not.
I think for me, because as I say, I've been very anti it for a long time, just because of the practice that I do, and the technology that we built is actually as anti low tech as we could possibly get, because we wanted to remove people from screens. We want less screen time. We want less device time. We want less tech reliance. The reason I've jumped into it now is because I'm really upping my training. I'm doing a lot of physical training, and I want to understand how to perform and how to look after myself. And I feel that it's helpful. This type of technology has been helpful for me because of the practices that I have, because of how tuned in I am to my body, because I don't do caffeine, drugs, alcohol. Like, I've cut everything, I'm trying to like get to a real kind of sense of who I am and how I operate. And what's been really interesting to me is that I know what good exercise, sleep and diet and meditation do for me. But what it's actually given me is insight that I didn't expect technology to, which has been, I have really good days when I interact with people. I can have 50 sleep, but if I've had a hug and I've seen some friends and I've connected, I have a really great day. Likewise, today is not a good day for me according to my Whoop. It will be now, but it wasn't earlier. And that's because I had a little bit of low level stress yesterday that was a mindset thing. And I knew I was doing it. And I had a little chat with myself before I went to bed. And I'm like, right, we're going to cut that out. We're going to cut this out. And I recognized and I had the wherewithal to understand that I wasn't in alignment right back to the start of our conversation. My limited belief that I was having on something I was holding yesterday physically was reacting in my body, whether I felt it or not. And what the tech has done is shown me that actually I absorbed a lot in my body yesterday because I was out of alignment. So it's given me a real wherewithal around how mindset is controlling my body when I got it as a body first piece of technology. So it's a really I'm still exploring. I'm sure Karila will dive into what other results I get from this over the years, hopefully years, definitely weeks and months. But it's just been an interesting appreciation from my perspective about how my energy and my ability to train and be physically fit is so connected to my mindset, which I kind of knew, but now I've got the data to back it up.
And that's really helpful.
Impacting.
That's really helpful
to me,
for you.
Yeah. It's helpful. Yeah.
And it's I think it's very helpful for a lot of people who work in that way. They need to see something, and that's motivational. So it has its place. Technology isn't going anywhere. So we need to again be more conscious of our relationship with it. And yes, it has many, many benefits. We're so advanced in so many ways. Why not utilize this technology, but in a very aware state? So now you've got that information to back up your experience. Will you continue to wear your, what's it called, woo? Is it called a woo? Called woo, like woo wisdom.
H-O-O-P, not sponsored.
Oh, okay, like a whoop. Oh, sorry. It's like
whoop, whoop, like that.
Dropping the Wu-Tang there. Like, I got my woo.
I mean, there's probably a place for that. Copyright it now. But yeah, no, I think that again, coming back to the themes that we talked about, our fun, that sense of community.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
It's telling me that sense of community is really important to my soul, to my being, to my life force,
and
to my oxytocin, dopamine, all those things that come from that kind of like hug, and we're also kind of self-hugging at the moment, touch, connection, as I say, we go for the obvious in the mainstream media, and everyone goes for the obvious of, sleep, eat, exercise. But actually what I now know is it's that stuff underneath that really shifts the needle for me. It's connection, it's community, it's self-talk, it's belief patterns, it's mindset that ultimately control how my body navigates this land at the moment. So it's been a really interesting discovery for me in this early stage about how important those other elements are to us all.
I'd love to hear the Kundalini view on that community element from you, if you have.
I just need to say that I'm not the voice of Kundalini, so
I know.
In this moment, I mean, I can just give you my
asking from your point of view.
Yeah.
The voice of Kundalini.
I am
a whoop.
I am with my invisible woo, and I shall now talk. Yeah. So from the Kundalini perspective, everything is magnified the more of us that are present. So back in the day when people were practicing very early hours in the morning, what was called an Aquarian sadhana, and that still happens. But a lot of things have shifted and evolved in the community since 2020. And, you know, it's time to evolve, and it's time to respect what is alive in culture now. So in terms of this sense of community, again, it comes back to common unity. It's like we are all in it together. So it's not about, it's integration rather than separation, you know, which is a permaculture value. So when there's more of us tuning into one collective stream of intention, that becomes so powerful that you really get a sense of that holding. And you have your own experience, what it's like in class. When we're in class and we're really in that inwards journey, we're going on our little pilgrimage inside with the Kriya, and everyone's in their personal process, but you're held, you're supported, because you're not alone in that moment. You're never alone. But we need to have those collective experiences to really feel it. And there's so much research when talking about spontaneous healings, when people go together and they go to a place, and it's not so much just the place, but it's the fact that there's a whole group of you. There's a whole community just tuning into that very single pointed intention. And I think that's so beautiful to experience, that on a day-to-day basis we can be having the shittest time. Can I swear? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
You absolutely can.
Yeah, so you can be having like the worst day, but then you'll bump into someone, like they don't know that you're having a rubbish day, but they'll just pick up on something, you know, and then little other things happen that suddenly start to open you a little bit more. And you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is the life force. It's there. It's just sometimes we block it. But yeah, this sense of community. Sorry, Karila, say again.
Do you think that we exchange life force with each other in those interactions?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's what it is? Is that like somebody else's life force is like causing your life force to either interact or even because, for example, I find that if I'm in a group yoga, any class, but like Kundalini has its torture yoga challenges for sure. And I feel like I can go much further if the group are doing it than if I'm just on my own. It's like my willpower or my ability to my
ego.
Yeah, my threshold is bigger because there's a group there.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that's energy of other people kind of helping my threshold increase. It's like I wonder if my threshold goes into the middle of everybody else's threshold in that setting.
You've definitely answered you've answered your own question, because that's your experience. When you're in class, what you can achieve with all those groups of people, with that group of people around you, is far greater than your practice when you're at home alone, you know? Like, this is the intention from any practice, is to have your personal practice, to do it for yourself. But then when you come together in those groups, it's so powerful because you are holding each other and there is an exchange going on. And yes, that's the same when we're interacting with people. You know, we've got an electromagnetic field, the same as the Earth has her own zone layer. You know, like everything has an auric field. It's amazing. It's like these resonant fields that we are a part of, and you can feel it. Places hold memory. There are people now going into places and clearing up the energy in those places. They're literally having very physical responses to being in those places. And we know, we experience that. There are places that we travel into physically, and you feel straight away, okay, something's amiss here. It doesn't feel right. And that's the same. All it has it. You know, there's always this language going on, and it can be very subtle. It can be very subtle, or it can be really like so loud that there's no way that you can ignore it when you get to a certain point. It's just whether or not you want to open to it. And yes, you know, it's important, especially if you feel very overwhelmed by being in groups of people, for example, or you feel very shattered after going into town, or, you know, it's important to check yourself. Really, like, what's going on with me today? Do I need to be putting myself in these situations? Do I need to be having this conversation with this person at this time in my life? Or can I wait a few days when things shift again? And that comes back down to our own cycles as well. We, as women, you know, we have a womb space. We're like lunar beings. We're shifting, we're changing. Like the moon, she has many faces, and it's good idea to start to track that, and you can do it with your woo watch, or, you know, or another people WhatsApp, you know, or you can be like, you know, you can go back to the analog way. I'm so analog. I like the alchemy of pen to paper, you know. But yes, it's good to, I think technology, going back to the technology, it has its place. Everything has its place. And we've just got to find our way to navigate it. Like we also navigate ourselves and where we are. So, yeah.
Well, data is just a bunch of numbers unless we know how to use it, right?
Yeah.
So it's our own application, and that data can come from ourselves or it can come from other sources, but it's how we process how we're feeling and what it means to us that is the most important thing at the end of the day, isn't it? And I just wanted to, I can't believe we're at time, because it's such, I was already thinking, gosh, we need round two. We need we need you back really soon.
Encore of Tabather.
You said something that felt like a beautiful reflection on this conversation, and that is that, you know, when people get together, there is more power in that. There is more life force created by that bringing of different people together. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you for joining us and helping us be that other voice today, and adding to our whole May the Life Force Be With You family of voices that we're creating. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for that. What a fascinating conversation. And Karila, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Who should we interview next?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Talking to Fiona?
No. To you.
Who
do you think we can bring into this conversation that would have an
Oh my goodness, you put me on the spot.
It can be your wish list, your dream list of someone you could talk to. We can't bring people back from the dead, so we can do that. We could try everything else.
That's it now. I can't. Who would you? You've really
any teacher, anybody that you feel like might have some interesting things to say on this.
Any areas
yeah. I mean, there's a few people, so it would be nice maybe to interview someone. For example, in the permaculture world, there's some lovely voices who are working very beautifully with nature. And I'm part of this project called the Mother Nature Project, which it's working with mothers and using art and nature as sort of tools and modalities to sort of understand our position in the world, and mothers as natural leaders and all of these things. So there's a lovely woman who's really into culture and is also into the sort of social applications of permaculture. So there's two women that spring to mind that I think would be really good to talk to. One is a dear friend of mine called Tina Limberis, and she's based in Greece. She's an Aussie Greek, but she's she's wonderfully out there as well. And I'm sure she'd have some lovely, very interesting things to say. And then there's a really beautiful permaculture teacher called Luby McNamara, who's based in the UK as well. So either of those, or both of those two women, I think you would have an incredibly fascinating conversation with. I can't believe the time has gone already. I'm very humbled that you invited me onto the show. It's my first ever podcast, and thank you so much.
You did amazing, and everything you said, I'm like, we have to have Tabather back, because everything you said,
I think Karila is a little bit biased. Just a little
bit. No, you did amazing, and everything you said is profound. And people really needed to hear everything you just said, and so I am so honoured that you were our first ever guest, and I really hope that you come back into the conversation in the future, because I feel like there is so much more to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You took me out of my comfort zone, because I'm not good with the old tech as well. But I just wanted to say one thing, to ask one thing of Fiona, if that's okay, because you were saying about your app, and how is that making a significant difference for you in your life, knowing that you have that data and having that confirmation in your body that you're not having, one of the best days, but then that shifts by having a hug, for example, with a friend. How is that being?
Well, it's only very early days. I've only got like 10 days worth of data, but it's helping me understand the things that I do and the strain that it puts and the stress that it puts on my body. I'm understanding that I don't get enough sleep. So that is helpful. It's changing my bedtime routine. So less screen time, more reading. I always journal at night anyway, but it really shows to me the impact of my practice in maintaining good health for me. So it's a growing learning experience, and I'll let you know over time.
So you're looking for patterns.
But yeah, I'm looking for patterns, and I'm looking for things that I know are right for me, and not, again, what someone might have told you to read in a book, but you go, that just doesn't feel right. That doesn't really, so it's more about understanding my body and how I can optimally show up every day, I guess, is the long and short of it. So I will keep you all posted.
We look forward
to have to Kundalini sometime, Fiona. It's amazing. I will. Anybody local, Soulomorfi, which means beautiful soul, such a beautiful name. Tabather's offerings are amazing. She does Kundalini, sound, all sorts of amazing things. And so if ever you find yourself in Brighton, find her. And you will have a profound, beautiful, authentic experience.
Fabulous.
So much.
Great stuff. Have a good day, and may the life force
be with you.
May the life force be with
you. Bye.
So, Karila, thank you so much for inviting Tabather to join us and be our first guest speaker. We've got lots more coming up that we're really excited about, but how was that conversation for you?
It was, obviously I know Tabather, but it was just so Tabather. It was so careful. What Tabather does so well is she speaks about these profound, huge things in such a careful, eloquent, and embodied way that you really feel it, and it was, I loved it, and I loved having a new voice in the mix, and I loved the fact that it was still loads of laughter and loads of going off in different tangents, so it still made the life force be with
you. We go off in different tangents all the time. We're super well prepared and always on point, surely is what you meant.
Because we're super prepared.
hey, we are, because it's our life, so we're prepared every day. But yeah, I just found, because I didn't know a lot about the Kundalini background as well, so just understanding that kind of the heritage of it and the root of it, it's just a really, everything exists for a reason, right? And even when you said about the breath, the root of breath being spirit, and you're like, of course it is, like, because it is the fundamental piece of our life force, comes from the breath. So it's just all these little webs that we weave, where there's this interconnected appreciation that at the end of the day it is going to come down to life force. And I know that with the other people that we've got lined up to speak to, we're going to find this connection coming back to this source of our entire topic and why we talk about this. But there's just so many different angles and so many different ways we can reach that. And you know, Tabitha's perspective from that Kundalini voice is just really, really interesting.
Learning the name, where the Kundalini name comes from for me, you know, I just love that it's like a lover's lock of hair, like that, you know, it's like a lover's gift. Your life force energy is a gift of love. It's so beautiful. Like it's so beautiful. And so yeah, I loved it. I loved that conversation. And I don't know how we got from like lock of hair to
technology,
mapping your life force energy, but
mapping the hugs.
that's
Mapping the hugs.
mapping
On
your
that note, I'm going to give you a big hug for today. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
We hope this conversation has topped up your life force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the life force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the life force be with all of us.